Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Siju. Coming up in this edition, Donald Trump has claimed victory in the US presidential election after media projections show that he has secured more than 270 electoral votes. Israel has ordered residents in northern Gaza to leave following an overnight strike on Beit Lahiya. And over 400 new products, technologies and services are on display at the China International Import Expo in Shanghai. We begin in North America. Donald Trump has claimed victory in the US presidential election after media projections show he has secured 277 electoral votes. He called it a magnificent victory for the American people as he addressed supporters in Florida. Trump also said he will stop wars. His Republican Party is also projected to gain control of the Senate. Reports from media, including Reuters, Capitol Hill and AP, say the Republicans have at least 51 seats in the Senate after winning in Virginia and Ohio. Associated Press journalist Philip Crowther has reactions from the Republicans and their supporters.
Well, what an extraordinary night it has been for Donald Trump and his supporters. Thousands of them inside the convention center here in West Palm Beach. Quite a few of them had actually been inside that room for hours, watching the likes of CNN, but also Fox News projecting Donald Trump to win several key states. And we really felt the atmosphere change toward true enthusiasm on behalf of Trump supporters when Pennsylvania was the key swing state that was called for Donald Trump's win column. And of course, there was huge enthusiasm when Fox News first declared Donald Trump the president-elect of the United States. That's when we saw some of his supporters literally running toward the front of the stage to be able to be as close as possible to their hero, Republican candidate Donald Trump, when he gave his victory speech. It was a very, very satisfying night indeed for these Donald Trump supporters. A lot of political allies also there to see Donald Trump on stage and to celebrate with him.
That was Philip Crowther with the Associated Press. Democratic candidate Kamala Harris has decided to skip her address at Howard University in Washington. Her campaign said the vice president will speak publicly on Thursday while votes are still being counted. Benji Haya brings us more from the Democrat side.
Beyond disappointment, this is now beginning a cycle of grief and bewilderment amongst Democratic Party circles, many of whom wouldn't have seen out the night, having been told by the co-chair of Kamala Harris's campaign to, frankly, go home to bed during what was supposed to be their victory party just down the road from here at Howard University in Washington, D.C. The presumption then was that the vice president still had a path to victory. That situation has changed. It is seemingly mathematically impossible to close the gap on Donald Trump, who has become ultimately the presumptive president. It is a damning result for Kamala Harris. There are still numbers to come through, of course, but there was real hope and optimism within her camp that at least this election would be close. Not necessarily that she would win it, but it would be tight and it might even take days to find out a result. And there will now be a real post-mortem going on within Democratic circles as to how they lost this election so badly, not just the presidential election, but control as well of Congress, which effectively gives Donald Trump free rein in what would be his second historic term.
That was Benji Haya in Washington. Turning to the Middle East, Israel is ordering residents in northern Gaza to leave after an overnight strike on Beit Lahiya. Israeli planes dropped leaflets telling people to head south. Palestinians say the new attacks and orders for evacuation are aimed at emptying areas to create buffer zones. Israel says the move is meant to keep civilians out of harm's way as its troops battle Hamas fighters. Rami Almaghari reports from Gaza.
Every time Israel orders the people to evacuate from their homes to another area, they are hit by a great deal of confusion and sort of perplexing and confused because of the fact that they can't know where to go under this situation. The majority of Beit Lahiya, of northern Gaza Strip areas are hit by the Israeli airstrikes continually, and they can't have a safe place to go to. The only location for this population is the Gaza city, which is now full of displaced people. Whenever they come through the route that the Israeli forces had designated for them, they are exposed to some kind of a checking, some kind of harassment as being reported. Some of these people have been reportedly wounded during their walk down to the city, to the Gaza city. Reports suggest that the Israeli army actions and operations across the northern Gaza Strip will continue for more 6 months. This is because of the fact that the militants over there, Hamas or others, are still fighting back.
That was Rami Al-Magari on the dilemma Palestinians face in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Israel Defense Forces continues its intense airstrike and ground campaigns in Gaza and Lebanon. Targets include Lebanese capital Beirut. Jonathan Regev has more from Tel Aviv.
Sirens sounded in the area of the Haifa metropolitan area, Israel's third largest city and the largest one in northern Israel. This due to 2 missiles which crossed from Lebanon. And throughout the day, there have been various sirens, most of them in the communities that are very close to the border itself. And in Lebanon itself, reports are that Israeli forces are now coming into the community of Bin Jbel, roughly 3 to 4 miles north of the Israeli border. This is quite a stronghold for Hezbollah, a place where very intense fighting took place in the previous war between Israel and Hezbollah back in 2006. Now reports are that Israeli forces are in the area of Bin Jbel, surrounding this community. Bin Jbel, just a little bit to the north of Marun Aras. Marun Aras is a Lebanese town overlooking Israeli towns south of the border. And this just shows the aim of the Israeli army, basically cleaning all of the Hezbollah infrastructure just on the border itself.
That was Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. In Asia, exhibitors have brought more than 400 new products, technologies and services to the China International Import Expo in Shanghai. One of the most popular sections is food and agriculture products. One company focusing on trade between China and Africa is trying to introduce a tea made of a plant unique to South Africa into the Chinese market. Cao Chufeng caught up with Lanza Chen from Chen X Group as she checks out the exhibition hall on the second day of the CIIE.
2 very busy days here in Shanghai. Since its debut in 2018, the China International Import Expo has attracted participants from 181 countries. And also for the past 6 expos, the total intended transaction value reached approximately $420 billion. Now, one of the focuses for the CIIE is to promote more South-South cooperation. On Tuesday, during the opening of the 7th session, Chinese Premier Li Qiang said that China is willing to further open up its enormous market to the world. And at the same time, he also said that China is willing to offer 100% tariff-free treatment for all the products from least developed countries. Now, this year at the CIIE, a total of 37 least developed countries are joining the event. This place where I'm standing right now is being quite popular. Now, this company is aimed at to introduce more African products into the Chinese market. For more discussion on that, let's welcome our guest today, Mr. Lanza Chen from Cheng's Group. Hello, Mr. Chen. Now, as I've just mentioned, your company focuses on introducing African products to this market here. What are some of the competitive edge of African products in China?
Well, we are exporting cosmetics and foods from South Africa, Zambia, and other African countries. Our selection criteria must be natural and unique. The ingredients must be organic or natural without any pollutions, which means by unique, the ingredients must be born in African area, and you cannot find it out of Africa. For example, the rooibos tea from South Africa, because rooibos tea has no caffeine, so pregnant women and kids can drink it well. But you cannot plant it out of the Western Cape. Also for the Cape aloe, if you plant it out of the Western Cape, it will die. And the African supplier think they must enter the Chinese market, otherwise they will be eliminated by competitors in the future. Not only because China has large population base, also China, Africa are politically stable. They do not need to worry about any trade war.
That was Lanza Chen on China and Africa trade through the CIIE. Finally, in South America, tropical forests are a crucial link in the fight against climate change and the loss of wild species. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has a plan to reforest 12 million hectares by 2030 to meet his commitments to the Paris Agreement. An NGO in a country is making progress on reforestation in the Atlantic forest, one of Brazil's most important biomes. Lucrecia Franco has more.
The Guapiaçu Ecological Reserve, or REGUA, in the north of the state of Rio de Janeiro. It covers 12,000 hectares of Atlantic forest, one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet, second only to the Amazon. Once blanketing over 1 million square kilometers along Brazil's coastline, just around 25% of the forest remains intact, and part of it thanks to rewilding efforts. Nicholas Locke and his wife Raquel decided to turn their farm back into forest, relying on donations from Brazil and abroad, as well as ecotourism. The reserve has been expanded.
We've now increased this to planting roughly 70,000, 80,000 trees a year, but has enabled us to reach the magical number of over 720,000 trees planted since REGUA's inception.
And this is a result of continuous planting of native tree species on the hillsides. Hard work to recover this threatened and unique ecosystem. To do that, hundreds of seedlings need to be collected from mature forests, which spend nearly 1 year in the nurseries before they're replanted. And it's expensive. Recovering just 1 hectare of degraded land costs between $5,000 to $6,000 US. But now the reserve can count on the help of South America's largest land mammal, the tapir. Following an ambitious reintroduction program launched here in 2017, tapirs who were previously extinct in Rio de Janeiro are back in the state for the first time in more than 100 years. Now 13 of the so-called gardeners of the forests, a flagship species, are now living in the reserve. They're voracious eaters moving from place to place and distributing enormous number of seeds in different parts of the forest.
The presence of the tapirs is absolutely essential for these forests to complete the ecological services provided by nature to humans. Absolutely essential that they are here to guarantee our survival at the end of the day.
And though vegetation recovery of the Atlantic forest is far from achieving an ecological balance, initiatives like this are bringing hope to start solving one of the most pressing issues of our times, climate change.
That was Lucrecia Franco on reviving the forests in Brazil. Now recapping the headlines, Donald Trump has declared victory in the US presidential election after media projections show that he has secured more than 270 electoral votes. Israel has ordered residents in northern Gaza to leave following an overnight strike on Beit Lahiya. And over 400 new products, technologies and services are on display at the China International Import Expo in Shanghai. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, the podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We would welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qizhi. Thanks for listening.